Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you've been watching the online world over the past, say, 10 years or so, you've definitely seen how things have changed a lot.
Oh, massively. It's gone from, simple home videos to these huge, complex media businesses.
Right, and often built around family life. These family vlogs, they start out promising this, real connection, wholesome stuff.
But then the money comes in, big money, and suddenly the incentives, they just warp everything.
Yeah, that line between just sharing your life and, selling your kids difficult moments, It gets really blurry. Sometimes it just disappears.
It really does. It's about scale, isn't it? Feedback. You post something cute, it gets a few views. Then maybe something a bit more dramatic happens. Spike.
And the algorithm rewards that.
Exactly. Shock, stress, arguments.
Yeah.
That's what keeps people watching. And that pressure, it pushed some creators to places, honestly, we couldn't have imagined before.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We're looking at probably the most notorious example of that dark side, the DaddyOFive channel.
Infamous is the word. They didn't just push boundaries, they absolutely demolished. Their whole model became documenting abuse, emotional.
It's shocking how fast they grew. One of the fastest on YouTube at the time. But the fall was just as fast and just as dramatic.
So our mission today is to really unpack that whole story. The rise, the fall, the legal stuff, what happened to the family, especially the kid. We're pulling from exposés, court documents from Maryland, interviews.
Yeah, we've got interviews with the biological mom, Rose Hall, one of the older sons later on, and analysis of how the channel even tried to come back after.
It's crucial to get past the viral clips and look at the cold, hard facts. How did this happen and what are the lasting impacts?
It's way more than just bad parenting caught on film. It's about how platforms and algorithms can fuel exploitation. Okay, let's get into it. Where did this all begin?
All right, so the DaddyOFive channel, it gets started August 13, 2015, launched by Mike Martin and his wife, Heather Martin.
And they presented this image of a big, energetic, blended family, right? 5 kids total. Yeah, Heather had 3 sons from a previous relationship, Jake, Ryan, and Alec. And then Mike had his 2 biological kids, Cody and Emma.
And at first, the idea seemed pretty standard for family vlogging back then. They said they wanted to share their lives, the prank, silliness, and family fun.
Mike even called their life an awesome movie that needed documenting.
The early videos were, relatively harmless. Trips to the grocery store, maybe some simple jump scares, pretty typical stuff.
But things changed fast as the subscriber numbers started climbing, first hitting 100,000, then shooting toward 750,000. Mike saw a pattern.
He was the main one driving the content edit, and he realized something pretty disturbing.
Which was?
The more intense the reaction they filmed, the more views they got. Simple as that. The algorithm loved the drama.
So documenting life went out the window.
Pretty much. It became about manufacturing drama. Mike actually started telling the kids to push harder in the prank, get the target as mad as she could possibly get her.
Wow, so actively encouraging escalation.
Yeah, the goal wasn't fun anymore. It was generating volatile emotional reaction because that's what paid the bill. Outrage equaled ad revenue.
And to get those reactions consistent, they needed a consistent target.
Which led to this awful dynamic within the family. They figured out who gave the best performance for the camera.
Their daughter, Emma, she didn't react much to the pranks.
Right. Mike apparently decided she was not worth prank. Think about that. Assessing your child's worth based on their react hormone. And then there was Cody. He became the main target. Why? Because, in Mike's own words, Cody would have an insane meltdown every time he was in the spotlight.
That meltdown was the product.
It was the gold standard for their business. Cody's genuine distress was exactly what the algorithm and apparently their audience wanted.
And what makes this even more disturbing, really predatory, is something specific about Cody.
Yes, the sources are clear on this. Cody had been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. ODD.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does ODD involve? Because this seems critical.
It absolutely is. ODD is a behavioral disorder. Kids with it tend to lose their temper often. They get easily annoyed. They can be really angry, resentful.
So they already struggle with managing emotion.
Hugely. Emotional regulation, handling frustration, dealing with authority figures. These are already major challenges for a child.
So you have a child who's clinically predisposed to intense emotional reactions.
And instead of helping him, creating a calm environment, getting him therapy, they did the
They threw gasoline on the fire for views.
Precisely. Mike wasn't just capturing a kid's tantrum. He was systematically exploiting a diagnosed disorder. They actively made his ODD symptoms worse.
By provoking him constantly.
Constantly. And framing him as the problem. You see clips where Mike's like, teachers need a damn raise for dealing with Cody. Heather wishing he'd act like a normal child.
So they're telling him he's the problem while actively making the problem behavior happen.
Yeah. It's a perfect vicious cycle. His ODD guarantees the reactions the channel needs, and their constant goading and negative labeling ensures those reactions keep coming, probably even more intensely because he feels attacked and misunderstood.
They turned his condition into their contents, into cash.
Making him the unwilling star, the villain. of their awesome movie. And it wasn't subtle. It was right there on camera. They completely weaponized the family dynamic against him.
Destroying the one thing a kid with ODD needs most: stability, support.
Aggressively denying it. For the algorithm. For the money.
Okay, so this kind of content, it couldn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, it just got too much, too graphic for people to ignore.
The evidence wasn't subtle. It was the whole show. And one incident really became the symbol of it all, the one that kicked off the massive backlash, the invisible ink prank.
Yes, I remember this one. It was awful.
It really encapsulated the whole cycle. Heather spills fake ink, right? Invisible ink on Cody's bedroom carpet.
And when Cody comes in,
all hell breaks loose. It wasn't just questioning. Sources called it a verbal assault. Just relentless, accusatory screaming. Guttural, animalistic screaming.
Imagine being that kid. You already have ODD, you struggle with intense emotions, and your parents are cornering you, screaming, accusing you.
You see him on camera just panic, crying, saying over and over, "I swear to God, I didn't do that." Pure terror.
It's textbook gaslighting, live streamed.
The level of cruelty is hard to watch, and then the supposed reveal.
It's just a prank, bro.
Right. They laugh. But for Cody, the relief, if there was any, is immediately swamped by the realization that his parents did this to him on purpose, for laughs, for views.
The betrayal is the real trauma there, isn't it? Not the ink.
Exactly. And this wasn't, a one-off bad moment. The sources show this went way beyond emotional abuse. There were physical incidents, also filmed.
Let's talk about the tablet destruction prank.
Okay. In that one, things escalate incredibly quickly. You see Mike, the dad, clearly push Cody.
And it wasn't just a little shove.
No. The force sends Cody flying face first into a bookshelf. It's a violent image. Really shocking.
And Mike's explanation for that?
Oh, it was all over the place. First, it was a knee-jerk reaction because he claimed Cody ran at him, which the video doesn't really support.
And then there was the blood, or ink.
Right. People saw what looked like blood on Cody's pillow afterward. Mike then insisted it was just red ink they'd planted.
Which, even if that were true,
it doesn't change the fact that you see him physically shove his young son hard into furniture on camera for the world to see. The justification is just absurd. Their sense of what was acceptable was completely gone.
And it wasn't just the parents directly targeting Cody. They encouraged the other kids to join in.
This is key to understanding how broken the whole family system became. There's one video, YouTube took it down later. It shows the older boys physically overpowering Cody.
What happened?
One kid puts Cody in a headlock, squeezing him. Another one reportedly kicked him in the nuts. Oh! And Cody is screaming. You can hear it clear as day. This isn't fun anymore. And the parents? They're filming.
Not stopping it. Filming it.
Using it as content. They basically turned the siblings against each other. It was like a little gladiator school where tormenting Cody got you. Well, maybe not praise, but certainly no consequences.
Were the girls involved too?
The sources mention a video where one of the girls gets slapped in the face, and the dad says something like, "You don't hit girls." Yeah, but she's your sister. She don't count.
Just normalizing violence within the family?
Completely. Teaching them that violence, cruelty, humiliation, that's how you operate in this family. That's how you get attention, maybe even rewards. Safe trust. Gone.
Which leads to maybe the most bone-chilling quote from the whole archive.
When Cody was trying to get away.
Yes. He's overwhelmed, clearly distressed, and he's begging them, "I want everybody to leave me alone. I just want to be left alone so I can calm down." A child asking for space to regulate himself.
And Mike's response:
"No comfort, no understanding, just no, Cody, I need to document my life. I'm vlogging." Wow.
It says everything. The camera wasn't just recording the abuse, it was actively preventing him from escaping it. The vlogging itself was part of the torment.
So when the parents later tried to say this was all staged, that Cody was acting,
nobody bought it. Experts were clear. Kids that age, especially a child with Cody's challenges, they do not have the capacity to, for one, consent to that, and two, emotionally process that.
You can't fake that level of fear and pain.
Right. Maybe they scripted the setup, the ink spill, whatever. But the terror, the crying, getting shoved into furniture, screaming, "This isn't fun anymore. That's real. That's genuine trauma happening in real time." Calling it acting is just offensive.
And they had ways to make sure the kids went along with it, even if they didn't want to. Bribes, basically.
Yeah, material incentives. They'd openly talk about getting cool stuff, a new PlayStation, a trip to Disneyland if the videos did well.
So endure the prank, take the hit, and you get rewarded.
Exactly. It creates this sick transactional dynamic. Your suffering pays for our stuff, so play your part. Critics called it incredibly disgusting, and it is. It completely messes with a kid's sense of self-worth, their understanding of consent.
They were essentially being paid to be victims. Okay, so With content this extreme, it was bound to blow up. And it did, largely thanks to commentary channels bringing it to a wider audience.
Philip DeFranco, in particular, played a huge role. He compiled clips of the worst moments into these expose videos that got massive attention. He really forced people outside the YouTube bubble to see what was happening.
And he handled it ethically, right? Refused to monetize those videos.
Yeah, that was important. He explicitly said he didn't want to look like he was exploiting the situation for profit. That gave his criticism a lot of...
And later, when the Martins tried to blame him for the backlash,
he had that killer analogy. I'm as responsible as a security camera in a gas station filming a robbery.
Perfect. Shifts the blame right back where it belonged. They uploaded the evidence themselves.
Exactly. The footage did the talking. Trying to shoot the messenger just didn't work.
So facing this huge wave of outrage, getting demonetized, even getting death threats, the Martins went into damage control.
Frantic damage control. And their story just kept changing. It was a masterclass in contradictory defenses.
What was the first attempt?
Round one was the classic non-apology. Sorry for your feelings. They claim people just didn't get their goofy family dynamic, took it all wrong.
That fell flat pretty fast, I imagine.
And so then came phase two, the interview. Heather started floating the idea that Cody was actually an aspiring actor.
Ah, the acting defense.
Right, saying his reactions were only 100% real, trying to imply he was in on it, performing to some degree.
Which, again, the footage just didn't support.
Not at all. So when that didn't work either, Mike went for the nuclear option in that video. Family destroyed over false accusations.
What was the claim there?
He just declared everything was fake. All of it. Completely fake, scripted, over-exaggerated. He literally said, I don't care anymore. The videos.
Trying to just erase the reality everyone had seen. Critics called it mental gymnastics.
It was completely illogical. How do you script a kid being shoved into a bookshelf? How do you script that primal scream of, this isn't fun anymore?
And he contradicted himself even then, didn't he?
Massively. In the same breath, he'd say something like, yes, we did the video. Yes, I own up to everything in the videos. I own up to it. And then immediately pivot to blaming DeFranco and the internet for ruining their lives and putting them in danger.
So zero actual remorse for the abuse.
Where?
Just anger about losing the channel and the money.
That's exactly how it came across. Their regret seemed entirely focused on the platform being taken away, not on the harm done.
Things got even more serious when Cody and Emma's biological mother, Rose Hall, came forward.
Yes. Rose Hall's story added crucial. She said Mike had left her way back in 2008 when the kids were really young.
And she had allegations about how Mike and Heather got custody later on.
She did. Rose claimed that years later, when she was struggling with Cody's ODD and reached out to Mike for help, Mike and Heather used those visits as an opportunity. She alleged they forged custody papers in 2014, making it look like she'd willingly signed the kid.
Wow. That suggests a pattern of manipulation long before you.
Absolutely. And it gets worse. Rose Hall claimed they used her private medical records, her bipolar diagnosis, a learning disorder against her in court to undermine her fitness as a parent.
That's incredibly invasive and unethical, if true.
It shows a real ruthlessness. And Rose and her sister also described intimidation tactics, Mike and Heather allegedly driving past her house, trying to run her off the road. It paints a picture of a very hostile, calculated campaign.
So when the kids were finally removed from the Martins' house,
Rose's lawyer made a significant statement. They said the children needed time to deprogram after being returned to Rose. That word deprogram volumes about the psychological.
And the kids had been told lies about their mother, too.
Apparently, Cody reportedly said that Mike and Heather had constantly told him his mom, Rose, had thrown him away like garbage.
Just devastating, actively trying to destroy that bond.
Isolating him, making him dependent on them even as they exploited his distress. It's incredibly...
Okay, so the public pressure, Rose Hall's testimony, the legal system finally had to act.
Yes. Maryland authorities launched a formal investigation. In April 2017, Child Protective Services stepped. Cody and Emma were removed from the home, placed in Rose's emergency custody.
And then came the criminal charge.
September 2017. Mike and Heather were charged and ultimately convicted of 2 counts of misdemeanor neglect of a minor. But the way they were convicted is important. The Alford.
Right, the Alford plea. Let's clarify that because it's often misunderstood. It's not pleading guilty, exactly.
Not in the traditional sense of admitting you did it. With an Alford plea, the defendant maintains their innocence, but concedes that the prosecution has enough evidence to likely secure a conviction if it went to trial.
So they're basically saying, we didn't do it, but you've got enough evidence, mostly our own videos, that a jury would probably find us guilty anyway.
Precisely. It's a strategic move to avoid a trial, potentially get a lighter sentence, but crucially, avoid admitting guilt on the record.
The contradiction is staggering. Publicly screaming, it's fake, but legally conceding the evidence is strong enough for a neglect conviction.
That's the core of it. They got convicted, but they didn't have to say, we are guilty. The sentence, though, reflected the seriousness. 5 years of supervised probation.
And a specific condition about posting videos.
Yes, a clear legal order. No more posting videos of Cody and Emma online. The court essentially validated what the critics had been saying all along. The content crossed the line into criminal neglect.
You'd think a criminal conviction, losing custody, probation, that would be the end of their online presence.
You would hope. But the drive for attention, for that online validation, maybe the money, too. It seemed relentless with the Martins.
They just kept trying to come back. YouTube did act, eventually.
Right. First, they demonetized the original DaddyOFive channel. Then they terminated it completely. But the Martins weren't done.
They just started a new channel, didn't they? Family 05.
Immediately. And disturbingly, it took off again. Racked up nearly 200 million views, hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Wow. So there was still an audience for them, or at least curiosity.
Apparently. It showed the stickiness of that kind. But YouTube did catch up again. July 2018, they terminated 05.
Was the reason that?
Violating guidelines against child endangerment, specifically citing the owners, meaning Mike's YouTube basically said, you, Mike Martin, are banned from this platform, whatever channel.
So, kicked off YouTube twice. What then? They tried going independent.
Yep, they tried setting up their own website, officialfamily05.com, and putting content behind a paywall, $5 a month.
Did that work?
Doesn't seem like it lasted long. Getting people to leave YouTube and pay is tough. Eventually, they just wiped the site, claimed it was part of the healing process.
But the healing seemed to involve finding new ways back into the spotlight.
Oh, wait. We saw Mike try a music career as Deadbolt. Jake, the oldest son, tried rapping as Baby Dawn. Heather popped up on TikTok as Mommy05. The need for an audience just...
And more recently, a podcast.
Yeah, late 2024, the DaddyOFive show. The theme, a road to redemption. But again, redemption seemed to require broadcast.
And Mike couldn't stay off camera for long, even with the kids' channels.
Nope. They launched the Martin Boy, just the 3 older sons. But pretty quickly, Mike was front and center. It really suggests the core issue wasn't just the prank. It was his need to be the star, the one in control.
Meanwhile, what was happening on the legal front? Did they serve the full 5 years supervised probation?
Actually, no, which is pretty surprising. In 2019, barely a year and a half in, a judge reduced their probation from supervised to unsupervised.
Wow. And they could get the conviction wiped off their record.
They were told they could seek expungement after just 3 years. So the system allowed them a path to effectively erase the legal consequences relatively quickly.
That seems lenient, given the scale of what happened.
It's striking, especially when you contrast it with their public stance. Even after taking the Alford plea, even after getting reduced probation, they still insisted they were innocent.
No remorse shown.
Sources close to the situation say none. No remorse for the harm to the kids. Their only regret seemed to be that their channel got shut down, that their income stream vanished. They apparently talked about how far the channel could have gone.
So the lost potential fame and fortune was the tragedy for them, not the trauma they...
That's certainly the impression which makes the final public chapter we know about even more, the supposed 2025 family.
Right, that TikTok video that surfaced.
Yeah, trying to project this image of a happy, reunited family. Even Rose Hall, the biological mom, was there, though she looked incredibly awkward and scared in the footage.
And Cody was in it briefly?
Just for a second, looking uncomfortable, saying in this kind of high-pitched voice, "Leave us alone." The whole thing felt really staged and off.
And then, soon after, the truth came out.
The facade just crumbled. Cody, now a young adult, went public and announced he was cutting all ties with Mike and Heather. For good.
Why? What was the final straw?
He said Mike had recently accused him of just using him for money and had made fun of my family. It showed the abusive dynamic hadn't stopped just because the cameras were mostly off. It was still happening.
And Cody's final words in that statement, they were
absolutely gut-wrenching. After everything, after detailing the latest round of emotional abuse from Mike, he just wrote, "I just want my effing dad to love."
That just cuts through all the excuses, all the claims of scripting.
Completely. That one sentence from Cody years later confirms everything. The pain was real. The trauma was real. He wasn't acting. He was a kid desperate for his dad's love, and instead he got exploited for clicks.
The whole DaddyOFive saga, it really became the ultimate warning sign about Sharenting, right? This whole industry of sharing kids' lives online for money.
Absolutely. It forces us to confront some really tough questions about child labor, private consent. What are parents allowed to do? And
we actually have some perspective from one of the children now that he's older, Jake, the eldest son. He spoke about it, I think, on Dr. Phil.
Yes, Jake's view is really valuable. He was in the thick of it. He admitted that, yeah, a lot of the videos were set up, scripted, but
the emotions were real.
He said the emotions, especially when things went off script and got hectic, were pretty genuine. He basically confirmed that even if they planned the prank, the reaction, stress, the fear, that was...
And what did he say he learned from it all?
Something really profound about online ed. He said you can't put out an image that follows you your whole life and makes people misunderstand or stereotype.
He knows that version of himself, the stressed out kid in those videos, is out there forever.
Exactly. He can't escape it, which perfectly illustrates the concerns academics have about sharenting.
Like Leah Plunkett at Harvard Law. What's her take?
Plunkett frames sharenting not just as sharing, but as creating global digital energy. She argues it fundamentally robs kids of privacy, dictates their identity before they can form it themselves, and can cause irreversible harm.
And she makes the point that these kids are basically child actors without any protections.
Precisely. They're performing, generating income, but without the safeguards that, say, Hollywood child actors have had for decades, like the Coogan laws.
Which brings up the whole debate about labor laws for child influence. If they're making millions for their families, shouldn't they have financial protection?
It seems obvious, right? There's a growing movement pushing for Coogan-style laws for kids on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. The argument is this isn't just sharing pictures anymore, it's a business.
So the Coogan law sets aside money for child actors in a trust.
Yeah, a percentage of their earnings goes into a protected account they can access when they... The idea is to stop parents from spending all the money the child...
DaddyOFive definitely crossed a commercial threshold. So has any place actually put laws like this in place for vloggers?
Only one state, based on our sources, Illinois. They passed a law recently.
Okay, what does the Illinois law do?
It requires vloggers, if they feature their kids significantly and earn income from it, to set aside a percentage of those earnings related to the child's appearance into a trust fund.
Sounds like a good first step. Similar to Coogan. Are there catches?
There's a big one. Enforcement. The way the law is written, the minor has to wait until they're 18, and then they have to file a civil lawsuit against their own parents to get the money and find out how much they're owed.
Wow. So the burden is entirely on the kid who might still be living at home, still dependent on the parents they have to sue?
Exactly. Imagine being 18 and having to take legal action against your own family. It's a huge barrier. Most experts think very few kids will actually be able to use the law to get their money.
So it shifts responsibility away from the state protecting the child and puts it all on the victim to fight for it later.
Pretty much. It highlights how far the law needs to catch up with this digital reality. The Martins could potentially get their record expunged, but the victims face this uphill legal battle just to get the earnings they generated.
And beyond the money, there are the ongoing digital dangers, right?
Yeah.
The DaddyOFive model showed how the need for views pushed parents to extremes.
Radical extremes. But even beyond the immediate danger in filming, there's the long-term risk. Sharing so much of a child's life, especially traumatic moments, it creates this permanent digital footprint they can't control.
Predators archiving footage is one concern.
A huge one. But now there's also the threat of generative AI.
How does that play into it?
Think about the DaddyOFive archive. Hours of footage showing genuine, intense emotion, stress, fear, panic, crying, anger. That's incredibly valuable data for training AI.
So someone could use that footage to create deepfakes?
Potentially, yes. Hijack their image, their voice, those recorded moments of trauma, and use them in completely new potential ways. They were exploited once for views, and that archived footage makes them vulnerable to being exploited again and again by technology.
Plunkett's irreversible harm point really hits home.
It does. The internet doesn't forget. DaddyOFive is the nightmare scenario showing why protecting kids' privacy has to come before the drive for online fame. When the camera's on, parenting can easily turn into performing.
And the kids always end up paying the price. Hashtag tag outro.
When you boil it all down, the DaddyOFive story is this terrible clash. Monetizing trauma versus basic parental. Mike and Heather built a business on their kids' break, hiding abuse behind that flimsy, it's just a prank.
Yeah, and while the law did eventually step in, maybe the first real check on their power was the audience itself just saying no more.
Right. People stopped watching, reported the channel. YouTube acted, maybe slowly, but they did act because the public outcry was huge. No views, no platform. That power does lie with the audience ultimately.
Which brings us back to that legal point, the Alford plea, and the possibility of expungement. They got convicted of neglect, but could potentially wipe that record.
Legally, yes. Which leads to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to really chew on after hearing all this.
Okay.
If the legal system allows someone to expunge a record for something like this, for documented abuse, broadcast abuse that clearly traumatized children long term, can that trauma ever really...
Especially now, with the internet being what it is.
Exactly. In an age where those videos of Cody's distress are still out there, archived, re-uploaded, analyzed forever, is that digital permanence the real sense? The one that can never truly be wiped away no matter what a court decides about a paper record?